Hello and welcome to tonight's P&Z meeting, Wednesday, March 27th, 2024. First up on the agenda would be the approval of our February 28 minutes, like a month ago. You guys get a chance to look at those and
It's okay to me.
look good? All right, entertain a motion.
Second.
There we go.
I thought looking good was a motion. Was that a
Sounds
motion?
like a motion.
Well, I don't know if I'm supposed to motion, so we'll just let you guys do that. Okay, next is the public comment, where we give the public 15 minutes to come and speak about anything that's not on the agenda tonight. Or what? Oh, I got to vote, sorry. Okay, we got to vote.
Aye.
For the, yeah.
For the minutes.
Scott, Sue,
Aye.
Aye.
go.
Scott's good.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we're going to number 2. Public comment, 15 minutes. Members of the public can speak to the commission regarding matters not on the agenda nor currently pending before the Planning and Zoning Commission. Is there anybody that has anything to share with us that's not on the agenda? No one, so we'll close that, pass that up, and go on to number 3, a proposal for a comprehensive plan land use designation, zoning designation, and a preliminary subdivision plat for a 22.93 acre property proposed to be annexed into the city of Moscow and generally located east of the current terminus of Moser Street. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. So before you tonight, we have a proposal. It's Pine View subdivision. There's a comprehensive plan designation, zoning designation, and preliminary subdivision plat associated with that. Highlighted in red at the center of your screen, you can see the current city limits boundary with the green dashed line. There's Moser Street located here, ties into the property, as well as this aerial is a couple years old, so you have Rolling Hills 9th and 10th. 10th is anticipated to be constructed this year. That'll bring 3rd Street up to the subject property here to the south. Then primarily agricultural land to the east as well as the northeast. Just a closer view of the property. You can see this is D Street located here. There currently is no right-of-way extending to the property on that northern portion. So the applicants are Joe and Pam Jewson. They're proposing 3 actions before you tonight. The property is 22.9893 acres in size, and it is proposed to be annexed within the city. So it's the comp plan designation, retaining that. It's currently auto urban residential, and then rezoning from ag forest to the R2 zone, which is moderate density, single family residential. And then the preliminary plat of the 22.93 acre area with 40 lots ranging from a little over 12,000 square feet to 27,491 square feet in size, referred to as Pine View subdivision. And of course, just a reminder, prior to annexation, the commission's required to review the property and provide the council with a recommendation regarding the future land use designation in the comp plan, as well as the appropriate zoning designations to be applied to the subject property upon annexation, which the council hears. So that brings us to the comprehensive plan land use designation in the surrounding area. As I mentioned, the property is currently designated as auto urban residential. Essentially, the surrounding area is that designation as well, except for Mosier Park, which is located to the southwest, and that's the green. That's Parks and Open Space designation located here. So what the comp plan says about auto urban residential, it's intended to contain predominantly single-family detached homes on lots ranging from 7,000 to 11,000 square feet in size and are more isolated from surrounding uses, which may require residents to rely more on automobile transportation. Could include areas generally anticipated to be developed for low to moderate density residential uses at densities between 3 to 6 units per acre, which could include a mixture of detached single-family, twin home, townhouse, residential dwellings. And then it points to the R1, R2, and R3 zoning districts as being the most appropriate for that designation. So that brings us to the current zoning configuration of the area. As I mentioned, it's ag forest, as well as the properties to the north and to the east within the county. Then properties to the west and to the south are R2 designation, which is the proposal before you tonight. So the R2 zone is a moderate density residential zone appropriately applied where the following circumstances are present. Single-family dwellings predominate the area. Terrain's not harshly irregular and smaller lot sizes can be accommodated without extensive earthwork. Utilities and other public facilities are adequate for the densities allowed, and the existing lot development patterns and policies embodied in the comp plan also guide the application to the zoning district. So really just a single-family zone, but it also allows for other uses such as market community gardens, group childcare facilities, and public parks and rec facilities. So that brings us to the proposed subdivision before you tonight, Pine View. 40 lots ranging from a little over 12,000 to 27,491 square feet in size. R2 minimum lot size is 7,000 square feet, so exceeding that by quite a bit. And then the minimum lot width is 60 feet, which all these proposed lots exceed that by quite a bit as well. This is the proposed subdivision plat. Kind of hard to see. We can zoom into different areas, but essentially this is Mosier Street coming in here from the west. This would be the extension of 3rd Street to the north. Ends up changing names at the intersection with Mosier Street just because of the gridded street network that we address properties on in the city. And so that would be Moose Drive that it would change to. And then you have Whitetail Lane, which would be the street here. So just a closer view of the western portion. You can see Mosier Street coming into the T intersection located here. There is an existing lot that's located in the county, an existing house. There'd be a lot line adjustment, so that would provide access. There's an existing driveway off of Mosier Street that provides access to that lot and that house, and this would be the proposed access in that location there. So moving further to the east, you can see the subdivision's proposed to be extended and stubbed to the property to the east. And then looking to the north, there's a cul-de-sac proposed. This is required for fire truck turnaround purposes, but the right-of-way actually extends to this northern property line. So if D Street were to be extended in the future, it would tie into that intersection with Moose Drive there. So looking at 3rd Street and Moose Drive, they're collector streets, which means they're 34 feet wide with bike lanes, no on-street parking, curb gutter sidewalks on both sides of the street. Mosier Street and Whitetail Lane are local neighborhood streets, so they're 28 feet wide. Parking on one side of the street, and of course curb gutter sidewalks on both sides as well. Water service in the area, there is an existing main on Mosier Street and a future main in 3rd Street when Rolling Hills 10th is extended. Sanitary sewer is proposed to be extended through the subdivision and conveyed along existing utility easements along the future alignments of D Street. And the subject property is considered developable in the comprehensive sewer system plan. Storm sewer is proposed to be piped and directed. There's a stormwater detention pond in the northwest corner of the subdivision next to the cul-de-sac. Will then be conveyed to existing mains within D Street. So there is a utility easement that runs along that property that connects to the existing mains in D Street, even though there's not right of way for a street. And of course, the detention facilities of the proposed development will need to meet Moscow's stormwater runoff control standards, which requires the stormwater to be detained to the pre-development rate. And there is a recommended condition in your packet tonight. And so there's pedestrian paths. There's one currently existing in this location at the end of Mosier Street. There is no path right now, but the property exists to provide access to the park property here. And so staff's recommending there's an existing utility easement here, and the language is a little bit different. Originally, we recommended the pedestrian path be extended from the cul-de-sac down to Mosier Street. I think it makes more sense with the topography. It's fairly steep topography here. You can get, I think, ADA grade in this location as well as on top of existing or proposed utility easements. And so be proposing to relocate it in this location and then extend to the property to the north should that property to be developed at some point in the future, provide pedestrian connections there. The parkland dedication requirements have previously been satisfied with a parkland dedication of 1.37 acres towards the creation of the city's Mosier Park in 1994. So no further parkland dedications required. So with that, staff recommends the commission conduct the public hearing upon consideration of testimony received, recommend approval of retaining the existing comp plan designation, recommend approval of the proposed rezone from ag forest to the R2 zone with no conditions. Then recommend approval of the proposed preliminary plat referred to as Pineview subdivision with the following conditions. So these are from the engineering department. The proposed subdivision shall be analyzed in the city's water system model to verify that the current design will have adequate potable and fire flow requirements. And if there are deficiencies, the applicant shall be responsible for the construction of the improvements needed to adequately serve the subdivision. Number 2, the applicant shall work with the city to determine whether the D Street sanitary sewer connection is sufficient to accommodate the proposed subdivision. And if there are deficiencies, the applicant shall be responsible for the construction of the improvements needed to adequately serve the subdivision. Number 3, in accordance with the prior development agreement, the applicant shall be responsible for the construction of all public improvements from the current terminus of Mosier Street to the subject property. So there's a couple of lots there that were allowed to be developed with houses, and those currently don't have street improvements in front of those. So this would be the responsibility of this applicant. Number 4, the applicant shall be required to conduct a detailed stormwater discharge analysis to include any mitigation actions necessary to ensure that the stormwater facility shall have no downstream adverse impacts, subject to the approval of the city engineer. And number 5, the emergency vehicle turnaround will need to be provided at the eastern terminus of Mosier Street, and the road improvements and utilities will need to be extended to the eastern property boundary of the property. And 6, the applicant shall provide adequate access to at least every other manhole for the sanitary sewer and storm sewer mains for maintenance. The applicant shall connect the water line in Whitetail Lane cul-de-sac to the water line in Mosier Street for water quality and redundancy purposes. And then lastly, the condition recommended by planning, the applicant shall extend a pedestrian walkway from Whitetail Lane south to Mosier Street and north to the property boundary of the adjacent undeveloped property. So in accordance with the commission's decision on the comp plan, rezone, preliminary plat, direct staff to prepare RCS documents to be reviewed at a future meeting. So I'd certainly be able to answer any questions you had.
Does anybody have any questions, Sue?
I have a question. It says R2 Auto Urban Residential, calls for lots ranging from 7,000 to 11,000 square feet. So is the 11,000 a max? Because these lots are all larger than 11,000.
The comp plan is a general guidance document, so it wouldn't be essentially code that would require that a max of 11,000 square feet. It's just a general guidance as far as what the typical range of square footages would be.
So if somebody, so just to follow her question, if there was a 14,000 square foot, not a problem.
Yeah, we have minimum lot size requirements within the zoning code, but there are no maximum lot sizes defined in the zoning code. And so, aside from that, they would be allowed to.
The figures are guidelines.
Exactly. Yeah. Correct.
We presume that most people aren't going to give a big lot away for less money.
Right. Hey, has anyone else got any questions for Mike?
Dennis,
Yeah.
Mike, what happens to the city limits? Is it just going to draw around this parcel?
It would. Yep.
So you don't get an area of impact after that.
Okay, and so the tree farm, for example, would still be outside city limits then?
Yeah, and the property that's in the north is outside the city too. So, I mean, it wouldn't create any islands as part of this annexation.
Okay, anyone else got any questions for Mike? Victoria, you good? All right, Mike, thank you. Next, we will hear from the applicant. Scott?
Good evening, Commissioners. Scott Becker, 405 South Washington with Hodge & Associates. Excuse me, sorry about that. once again, I think Mike did an excellent job. Covered all the bases that we talked about. We've had good communication with the city and back and forth and trying to get this right from the start. So if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. Otherwise, we'll keep moving along.
Yeah, Scott, so there's more recommendations than often we have, and you've looked those recommendations over with the client and you're in,
Yeah, we have the wild card is always the water, the water analysis and trying
Sure.
to figure that out. Because they can't run an analysis until they see the lots, and so there's kind of some of that back and forth. The other recommendations, the paths are fairly common, the walkways, and
yeah, the path didn't, but I just thought there were enough recommendations that I just wanted to be sure you were, I wanted to hear you say that
right.
you're happy.
No, we've like I said, we're working with the city and covering all the bases, but these were just a few things that in the hurry of trying to get this before you as quick as we could, some recommendations that they came up with that maybe things that we glossed over.
Okay, anybody else got any questions for Scott? No?
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Scott. Okay, now we'll open it up for anyone that wants to speak in support of the project. Is there anyone out there that wants to speak in support? No? Okay, how about anyone that wants to speak that's opposed to the project? No one? So we'll close the public hearing, I guess?
General testimony.
Having windy
For,
night.
yeah,
so
general
anybody-
questions or,
Comments.
you guys got any comments or anything, or?
General
General
testimony for
testimony?
public.
Oh,
Mr. Chair.
general? Anybody in general testimony? I didn't know that.
No generals out there.
No general? Yes. Oh, yeah, we have to, these two were filed late, I guess, from Clifford Todd and,
That's the second one.
this is?
That was the next
Just the
one.
first one.
Oh, this is first one? So we'll enter this one in from Clifford. That's right, just enter that one in, and we've all read it, we've all got copies of it, and, okay. So, anything else? Any discussions, or are we good?
Do we need to read it for the public, or are we just okay that we're aware of it?
I'll attach it to the minutes.
You don't have to read it.
So I just still have a question about lot sizes, because this is going to be R2 zone. So aren't these lot sizes R1 lot sizes?
Okay, you can go bigger. You can't go smaller.
Okay.
Well, can you not go smaller? Is that just a suggestion, or?
No, there are minimums. There's no maximum.
They're
Okay.
minimums. Yeah, I just, okay.
Yeah, the minimum's in the code, but there's no max in the
Okay,
code.
so R2
Yeah.
can be R1 sized in R2. All right.
Okay, so anybody else have anything else for this one? All good?
We're talking, I just wondered about the tree farm situation. Can anybody explain that a little bit? This is the one with the tree farm?
Yes.
Okay. There
Tree
was
farm.
this letter
Tree farm
and
next door.
some comment that no one has gotten up. I thought someone might get up and say something and explain it. They're concerned about the tree farm, which is off the property, and I just wondered what that was about.
I'm not exactly sure. I haven't had any discussions with the tree farm. We just received the
Scott, wanna come up?
comment. Yeah,
Good.
certain.
Yeah, I've spoken with the tree farm owner, and his concern is having people cutting through his property, and so they're a little bit concerned with having, a walkway going to the tree farm. But like Mike said, in the future, that's going to change, and if it's ever developed, it would be nice to have that connection to this subdivision. So even though the walk goes to the tree farm, I believe it's the tree farmer's responsibility to fence off their property. property.
So the proposed path does go right to the tree farm? Is that what we're saying?
It extends to their property boundary, correct? So if there's a future, this property owner currently doesn't have any plans for developing the property, but maybe 30 years down the line, they sell it to somebody else that would like to develop the property, then we have that pedestrian connection to be able to have a, closer access to the park as well as conversely, the school on D Street. So.
Yeah. I'm not up to speed on the tree farm myself, but how many years ago was it invented, do you think, Scott? Do you have any idea? Are we talking 25 years here?
I believe it's 20 or so, because I've been working on this project since I started.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were dealing with the tree farm at that time. So I don't know what kind of a trust it's put into or how it's locked up, but
It's always,
so yeah, Joe might know more.
it is difficult to imagine the future. People we have a hard time seeing our city grow, and yet it does grow.
Well, and even if it's not developed, a new owner might view it a little bit differently and see it as more like a park amenity, where this would tie into that too. But as it stands right now, the current owner does not want trespassers through there.
Yeah.
So Vince's made good neighbors in this case.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to know what it was about.
Thank you.
Come on up and give your name and address so we can get you on record.
Carlisle, I live on,
You gotta come up to the mic. I know you gotta do the whole thing.
I have some questions.
Mike?
This doesn't concern me at all, you're on Moser Street, so.
Yeah, I mean, I'll stand up.
Yeah.
On Moser Street, 2542 Moser Street. Do me a favor, point out exactly where the tree farm is on here. Because it doesn't quite add up in my head right now. So that's a tree farm.
This is it right here.
All right. And then the path goes to the tree farm. What's the point of putting the path to the tree farm if there's no egress access? That doesn't add up. Sorry, I was trying to make sense of it.
So if this property is ever developed in the future, you're going to have only accesses off of the future extension of D Street. So you're not going to have any streets that connect to the rest of this subdivision down here. You've got a park right down here in the corner. So if you lived down here in this subdivision, say it was platted, there was a street that maybe went through and you had a lot down here, you'd have to walk all the way out here, all the way around down the street in order to be able to access the park. In order to provide pedestrian access, more direct route to a facility like a park.
So
So we do try to provide pedestrian access to our parks, especially considering that kids will use them. And
So it's not a
better to
new
keep them off the
thing.
street.
I'm with you. So you're
Project.
just going to build a path that just terminates at the tree farm? Is that what's going to happen?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he could put up a fence if he
You-
wanted.
Yes.
Mike, you did say at the end of Moose though, that is gonna connect to the gravel road on D, or is that what you were saying?
If it's ever developed, so the issue is, I think we have 30 feet for an easement for utilities that extends over here. But this is still in the county, so they still own to what would be the middle of the right of way. And so if they were ever to develop the tree farm property, they'd have to dedicate probably 30, 40 feet of additional right of way for the road to extend. So that's our issue. So if that ever got developed, this was dedicated, the road was extended. They extended the right of way at the end of Moose to be able to tie into D Street. So the right of way is there. We just need the extension on D Street in order to be able to connect
Is
that.
there not a gravel road on the end of D Street? Does it go all the way to Moose?
It's a gravel road, but it's not a public right of way. It's just to access, I
I'm
think.
just wondering, because kids are gonna go that way whether we want them to or not. I'm just wondering. if
Yeah,
they'll be able to come
you know,
through
it's
there.
on Mr. Rangan's property, and then there's another driveway that extends across that. And so, technically they could say no trespassing on that.
But it's gonna connect, right? Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay. But there is access all the way to the property line at the end of that cul-de-sac, right?
Yeah.
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 But Mike, say again what you said before about a island. Doesn't this look like an island forming up?
We can go back to, let's see here.
because you can't see the rest of it.
So that's the current city limits boundary is this green dashed line. So all of this is in the county.
Yeah.
So the tree farm's in the county, Mr. Rangan's property's in the county, this property's in the county. So yeah, it would just come up here. I mean, if this property were to be annexed, then the tree farm would be an island.
Okay, so
but
what we're
not until-
doing is we're kicking the can down the road. The basic, the issue will come up, but tomorrow.
Well, if,
Only
yeah, I mean, if
family
this
bring-
property's ever developed, you know, that'll be the
Okay,
question.
I got it.
Yeah.
City juts out. It's not an island.
Thanks.
I'll ask another question. This is a better view. This makes more sense. I'll stand back. So this view makes way more sense because it's like what you'd see on Google Maps. Where are the ingress and egress paths proposed on this? Can you point them out on the, like, can you put your pointer on them?
Well, the pedestrian paths would be located in this vicinity here. There's already one located down here that provides access. This is the park property, the triangular shaped piece. And so the paths would connect at one point in this location, and that would go straight down to Mosier Street to be able to connect to the park.
So it's a path to nowhere at this point, and no guarantee it'll be a path to anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, we have in the neighborhood, you know, as these properties develop, I mean, this whole area was master planned at one point in time. I mean, right now, Panorama, we've got a path to nowhere, but Rolling Hills 10th is platted. That eventually connects. Then we've got a path right there to the park. You know, same deal right here on 3rd Street. There's a pedestrian path located right here that'll eventually connect over here when Harvest Hills 2nd is developed. So yeah, it's just these exceptionally long blocks, except, you know, especially on the collectors like 3rd Street, just provides that shorter access for pedestrians. So,
And safer, shorter and safer.
Yeah,
Off the road.
exactly.
I think part of the confusion is it isn't a path to the tree farm. It's a path that is designed to go southbound to get to the park
Right.
that's already dedicated. So it might have the appearance of being a path that's going up to the tree farm, but that's not the intent.
well, it's really for the benefit of the tree farm, should it ever be developed in the future, right?
But is there a way we can just provide that easement and not have to physically build the path? Because I can kind of see if there's a path to the tree farm, he's probably gonna have to deal with trespassers, right? I mean, it's a path to the tree farm, but the tree farm is off limits. So
I think the point is,
could there be an easement established that if that ever gets developed, then that path is created?
I mean, there's an easement that's established with the path or would be established with the path.
I'm just trying to figure out, if I was a property owner, I wouldn't want a path that everybody wants to take to property that I don't want them to access.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple as putting up a fence at that location to prevent any trespassing. I mean, it would eventually in the future, if that were to happen, then it'd be the responsibility of the property owner of the tree farm to construct that sidewalk across there. And so essentially it'd be shifting the responsibility to one, you know, from the current property owner that's developing to a future property owner. And so that would be the only caveat with that.
But wait a second here. The path doesn't go to the tree farm. It just goes to the street.
I think it does. I think they're proposing it to go between lot 16 and 17 is what they're saying.
Are you?
That's what they're asking
Oh,
for.
but they didn't draw it.
They didn't draw it. They're asking for that. Staff is asking for that.
Yeah, I see.
It'd be the north side
You
as
put a green
well.
line there, but they didn't draw it in. And why do we have it there? Why don't,
Well,
So,
you're coming down.
can
too
we
far.
just have an easement that is held in,
that's the
Yeah, I
utility
see the
easement,
problem.
isn't it?
yeah.
That's the utility easement. So
So
it's there already.
is there a fence around the tree farm?
I don't believe so, no. I mean, it would just
Ah.
take this location. I mean, the houses are going to be constructed here and here. I mean, if that wanted to prevent that, I mean, it'd be a short segment of a fence. Typically, you construct a fence at the rear of your lot on these houses anyway. And so.
It'd have to be a pedestrian cul-de-sac.
I mean, I'm sure we could sign it, no through, no through
that, my
access
It's
at
only
that
100
point.
feet. It's not like you can.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of the green line coming on down, you need to have. So you're just talking about in between those two lots.
Yeah.
And if you don't put something there,
Yeah,
somebody's
I
gonna be
don't
putting
think
their hot
it's
tub out there or something, and then day comes
that
and
big a deal.
work.
Life's going to treat the tree farm the way life treats us all. It's going to change. And we don't know what's going to happen, but hello.
And that easement's like 30 feet wide, 40 feet, 30 feet.
It's typically only 10 feet
it's
wide.
Oh, 10
it's nowhere
feet.
near 30.
Oh.
It's just 10 feet.
Dennis, I had
Yeah, go ahead,
a
Sue.
question.
Unless there's utilities. So it'd be wider if there's utilities, but it's typically
When
10.
you were mentioning daycares and other permitted, was that permitted in the zoning code or permitted in the comprehensive land designation?
In the zoning code.
Okay. Well, just for future thoughts, if you remember way back when the first iteration of trying to extend housing up Third Street, there was a proposal to put neighborhood commercial right at the intersection of Third and Mountain View. The idea being that as divisions and people are moving further and further out of the city,
I remember.
the access to small things, hairdressing salon, coffee shop, whatever, something small that would serve that community. And so you're saying that there's no neighborhood commercial allowed in the zoning code that you're talking about, R2?
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not saying that these people have to do it. I'm just saying this is what the Planning and Zoning Commission have been thinking about for a long time.
that's a specific zone is neighborhood business. So that property actually was zoned neighborhood business. So there's still a parcel there at that northeast corner of Mountain View and Third Street that
Okay.
is zoned neighborhood business. And so it's intended to be a commercial use at that location. But yeah, the allowed uses within the R2 zone are the ones I listed there. So
Yeah.
no other uses would be
Yeah.
permitted.
I'm not saying for this, but so I think in future, we need to be thinking about not just having an exclusive, because that would be like a little island, but anyway.
Think about what?
Well, I was thinking if neighborhood business is a separate zone, it was
Yes.
like if this were not already all platted, that then when they were asking for a rezone, it would have to like make a little zone of neighborhood business and it would be, the rest would be R2 and you'd have a little section that was neighborhood business. And anyway,
Okay.
I was just thinking ahead, the planning part.
Right? Okay, has anyone else got anything else? You want to add discussion about this? So how do we proceed, Mike?
Motion and.
Motion?
You would need a
entertain
motion for the,
Do we do all four of them at the same time or each
I would
individual?
suggest going one at a time, especially with the preliminary plat, since we have so many recommended conditions on that.
Okay, so we need a motion for the first one, for the recommended approval of the comprehensive plan. Can anybody,
Land use designation, is it?
So moved.
Yeah.
and number two, recommend approval of the
Do we
pre.
want to vote on?
We have to vote on each one of them
Let's
too?
vote on each one. Yeah.
At each,
One by
okay,
one.
let's go this.
Second on.
Somebody
One to
second
you.
it.
Yes.
Second, yep. Yes.
Aye.
Richie?
Did you second?
Yep.
You did.
Aye.
Scott said.
I think he
Sue?
motioned. I think
I made the
I
motion.
think they're voting already coming this way.
Yep.
Yeah, we've already voted and seconded.
So
Our chair only looks to the left.
just a quick comment. I've known Pam and Joe for a long time, and I don't want there to be a conflict or appearance of conflict. So I'm going to abstain. I support the project, but I'm going to abstain.
Sure.
Aye.
Aye.
We'll go this way now.
Aye.
This way. Aye.
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 All right. Okay, now on the recommended approval of the proposed rezone with no conditions or recommend approval of the pre-zone rezone with conditions.
I move we approve the rezone with the conditions stated by staff.
There's none
Is that
for
how
the
that's
rezone.
going?
Oh,
No.
there's none for the
No, there's
rezone?
no
conditions.
conditions.
There's no
The
conditions
rezone,
on
just
it.
for this other one.
The conditions come on
The preliminary plot.
on the.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
So back to this, recommend approval of the pre-zone rezone with no conditions.
Second.
Okay, let's go this way. Scott,
I,
Sue,
I,
Abstain.
Vicky? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Now you have all your conditions.
Yeah. Oh, great. Number third, recommend approval of the proposed preliminary plat with no conditions or recommend approval of the proposed preliminary plat with conditions.
Recommend approval with all the conditions,
second.
which are a page long, so I'm not reading.
Yeah.
Okay, a motion and a second. Victoria?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
I,
I,
Okay. Number four, in accordance with the commission's decision on the comprehensive plan, land use designation, rezone, and preliminary plat, direct staff to prepare relevant criteria and standards documents.
So move.
Second.
Did we miss anything?
I,
Scott?
I.
Oh, aye. Sue?
I,
Aye.
Vicky?
Aye.
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 All right. Well, that one is done, huh? Okay. Now we'll go to number 4 on the agenda. It's a proposal of a comprehensive plan, land use designation, zoning designation, plan unit development, PUD, for a preliminary subdivision plat for 2.53 acre property proposed to be annexed into the city of Moscow, generally located east of the current terminus of Wild Rose Drive and south of Flomer Lane. Mike? Is Flomer Lane, is that the name of that?
Thank you again, Mr. Chair, Commission. So before you tonight, we have the Wild Rose Court comp plan designation, zoning designation, PUD, and preliminary plat. It's about 2.53 acres in size, so highlighted in kind of the darker red at the center of your screen are the existing city limits boundary in purple. So this is the property here. There is kind of a horseshoe shape, but there is property frontage on Flomer. We have Lundquist here to the east, Highway 8, and then the current Ridgeview Second subdivision, which includes a street network currently under construction. They're on the third phase of this subdivision. So it includes Ridgeview, Roxbury, Wild Rose, and Cypress Court. So just a closer view of that property. Currently, street access through Ridgeview Second is Wild Rose Drive, teed here. So the applicant's Providenza LLC, and they're proposing 4 actions for this 2.53 acre property. The first is to retain the current comp plan designation of auto urban residential. The second is to rezone from the R1 designation, which is low density, single family residential, to the moderate density, single family residential R2 zone. And we already covered this in the prior hearing, that the commission's intended to provide a recommendation on the comp plan and the rezone upon annexation. So the Wild Rose Court PUD and preliminary plat contains 16 lots ranging from 3,000 to 10,666 square feet in size, served by a private street. There's a pathway connection that's part of the parkland dedication, and an open space parcel as part of the bonus density requirements of the subdivision. So it brings us to the comprehensive plan land use designation, auto urban residential. And this was the same designation as the last hearing, so I'll just quickly kind of move through this. So it points to the R1, R2, R3 as being the most appropriate designation. Brings us to the zoning configuration of the area. So Ridgeview Second is really a combination of R3, R2, and R1. As you head to the north, transitions to the R1. And we have the Southgate subdivision on Notting Hill heading to the north. The White Avenue roundabout is further out of your screen there. A lot of the other properties in the county are located in the R1 zone as well. The proposal would be to rezone this property to the R2 designation. So what the R2 zone states is appropriate where the following circumstances are present. Single-family dwellings predominate the area, terrain's not harshly irregular, smaller lot sizes can be accommodated without extensive earthwork. Utilities and other public facilities are adequate for the densities allowed. Existing lot development patterns and policies embodied in the comp plan also guide the application. And like we had covered before, really a single-family zone, but also includes a few other uses. So it brings us to the Wild Rose Court subdivision. 16 lots, 3,000 to 10,666 square feet. Minimum lot size for R2 is 7,000 and minimum lot width is 60 feet, which is why they're required to go through the plan unit development or why they're applying for that. So it brings us to the proposed preliminary plat. You have the extension of Wild Rose Drive, and this will end up have a circle designation. So it turns into a private street. So you can see that located here. Circles through the development. There are essentially 15 lots, and this would be the 16th lot with frontage on Flomer. This would be the proposed pathway connecting to the existing pathway in Southgate Second. And then this would be the open space area which the pathway transects there. Tract A is a stormwater detention parcel located here to the south. So the applicants proposed a PUD to coincide with the plat, and they're requesting numerous zoning code deviations to accommodate smaller lot sizes and a more compact development. So 15 of those lots would have a similar style single-family home constructed on those properties. The square footage, or the floor area, is 1,500 to 1,600 square feet being proposed currently. It's a 3-story design with the lower level partially daylighted on one side to follow the contours of the property. And there's multiple floor plans options available per each of the 3 floors. So this brings us to the PUD. So you can see the street configuration, stormwater tract, as well as the building footprint. So what that would look like on the property. And a little bit more detail about some landscaping, retaining some existing vegetation, the pathway connecting to the Notting Hill area, Hampton Court. And this would be the proposed building elevation design the applicant has submitted. This is a view from the front. So partially daylighted on one side, into the hillside on the other. More of a shed roof design, modern. This would be a view from the side. And a view from the other side.
Okay.
So just be a rendering of the front of what these would look like. Another angle. And then at the rear of the property. So that brings us to the floor plans. So this is the lower level, contains the garage in all the different iterations. So this is option A. Really the only thing changing, so there is a rec room. You got a double compact car garage, laundry, and a bathroom on this level. Option B essentially just adds another bedroom. Option C would be an office, and then there'd be a workshop storage area located at the rear. And then option D, you'd have another rec room and a bedroom in a different location there at the rear. Then the main level, level 2, so this is option A. So you have the living area, dining area, kitchen, another bathroom, and then the stairs. So just a little bit different configurations is option B, and then option C, which frames in an office in this location here. So a little bit more reduced living, dining space there. And then the upper levels, this is option A. So you have 2 bedrooms, a balcony, and a bathroom. That's option B.
2 bedrooms, 2 baths.
So 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. Just a little bit different configuration of the bathroom. Looks like option C. So taking a review of the setbacks, R2 zone, the front's 20, rear's 20, sides 5, and both sides have to equal 15. The applicant's proposing setbacks of 13 in the front, 15 in the rear, and side 5. So both sides don't equal 15. It would just be a 10 on either side for the minimum. R2 zone brings us to the base density. So there's 4.8 dwelling units per acre base density defined in the PUD code. 6.32 dwelling units per acre proposed as part of this project. So thus requires 32% bonus density required. So looking through the density bonuses, the applicant's chosen a few different categories, the common open space category. So up to 10% maximum bonus may be awarded if at least 20% of the PUD is devoted for any functional common open space in excess of open space required elsewhere in the code. They've dedicated approximately 10% of the total area to open space. And so staff's recommendation that a 5% bonus be awarded for that, since it's about half of the 20% there. Sustainable development practices, 15% maximum bonus could be awarded for this category. Applicants propose the following measures. So additional R value, so insulation in the wall cavities, Energy Star rated windows and HVAC systems, as well as efficient appliances, efficient framing methods, on-site recycling for construction materials, and the HVAC system located in living space envelope, not in the garage, and the use of local materials or environmentally preferred products. And so with those proposals, our recommendation that a 12% density bonus should be awarded for sustainable development practices there. And then pedestrian and bicycle connectivity, 10% may be awarded for increased pedestrian, bicycle, or vehicular connectivity between the proposed development and the existing or future neighborhoods. So applicants slightly exceeded the parkland dedication, chosen to develop the pathway instead of traditional parkland. So we recommend 5% density bonus should be awarded there. And then the landscape plan, 5% maximum on the landscape plan. Has to go significantly over kind of minimum landscape required by the zoning code. So there's not much required right now, just because of the adjacent zoning districts don't require it. So the applicants proposed a landscape plan that retains existing landscaping and exceeds landscaping required by the code. But in order to achieve the 5% density bonus, it's staff's recommendation that a landscape plan needs to be provided for each lot as well as the entrance to the subdivision. And so we're recommending that as a condition to be placed should the commission approve the PUD. Then maintenance of existing land contours, vegetation, or other special site features. So a maximum of 10% could be awarded based upon the amount of site disturbance, including whether there's minimal or slight disturbance, whether there's excavation other than for structural foundations, whether streets follow contours of the land, amount of grading, and whether there was removal of natural vegetation. So the applicants designed the site to minimize the amount of site disturbance and has also designed the single-family dwellings to be daylighted on one side in order to preserve the contours of the site. We'd recommend that 5% be awarded for this category. So with that, all those density bonuses would add up to the 32% that's needed as part of the project. Looking at the street network, Wild Rose Circle is a private street. Typically it's 20 feet wide, but they've widened it to 28 feet to allow on-street parking on one side of the street. Curb and gutter is on both sides of the street as well. Sidewalks just on one side and on-street parking's on that one side as well. Then Flomer Lane's a county road, approximately 20 feet in width, and it's gravel. It brings us to utilities. The water service is extended via Wild Rose Drive. And the water line, I would note that there is a larger property located to the east, and they have extended a water line at our request. That property could reasonably be divided maybe into 2 or 3 lots, and that would provide access. Maybe they annex in the future, and then gravity to the sewer system in Troy Highway. And so wanted to provide that connection or that opportunity to that property. And so that water line's been extended there. And then our 2012 comprehensive water system plan, the property is considered developable. Sanitary sewer mains currently exist in Wild Rose Drive, proposed to be extended into the subdivision. And then our comprehensive sewer system plan states that the existing system's adequate to serve additional flow. Subject property is within the Southeast Sewer District, which require consent from the district to connect. And our comp plan indicates that 50 to 75% pipe capacity still remains in the district, depending upon the location. Storm sewer will be piped and directed to the stormwater detention pond located near the entrance of the subdivision. And then, of course, that'll need to meet Moscow stormwater runoff control standards to be detained at the pre-development rate. Parkland dedication is 1.46 acres of net developable land. R2 zone requires 5% dedication, which equates to 3,177 square feet requirement. Applicants proposed a 20-foot wide corridor and the construction of an 8-foot wide pathway for a total parkland dedication of a little over 3,200 square feet. The Pathways Commission reviewed the proposal on February 13th of this year, and they recommended approval, as well as Parks and Rec Commission on February 22nd, and they recommend approval as well. So that brings us to the staff recommendation that the commission conduct a public hearing and upon consideration of testimony received, approve retaining the current comp plan designation of auto urban residential, approve the proposed rezone from R1 to the R2 zone with no conditions, recommend approval of the proposed PUD with the following condition. In order to achieve the full 5% density bonus for landscaping, the applicant shall expand the landscape plan to include landscaping on individual lots in the entrance to the subdivision. And then recommend approval of the proposed plat for Wild Rose Court subdivision with the following conditions. The proposed subdivision shall be analyzed in the city's water system model to verify that the current design will have adequate potable and fire flow requirements. If there are deficiencies, the applicant shall be responsible for the construction of the improvements needed to adequately serve the subdivision. Applicant shall gain approval from the Southeast Sewer District to accept sanitary sewer water in the form acceptable to both the city and the district. The applicant shall dedicate 10 feet of right-of-way along Flomer Lane frontage of the subject property in order to accommodate the construction of a local street per city standards in the future, in the event it becomes necessary to do so. The applicant shall be required to conduct a detailed stormwater discharge analysis to include any mitigation actions necessary to ensure that the stormwater facility shall have no downstream adverse impacts subject to the approval of the city engineer. The applicant shall extend the water main currently terminating at Lot 13 to the south to connect with the water main within Wild Rose Court to improve water quality and redundancy in the subdivision. And then in accordance with the commission's decision of the comp plan, rezone, PUD, and preliminary plat, direct staff to prepare the RCS documents. I'd certainly try to answer any questions you had.
Question. So the landscaping plan where they need to provide what they're going to do with each lot and the entrance. So that would be like, instead of having water guzzling lawn, they may put in xeriscape. There'll already be smaller yards, so that helps with water. But is that the idea?
That's typically what happens. Yeah, I mean, usually with PUDs, they'll have a landscape plan, then each lot will have, a certain number of shrubs, trees, whatever surfacing, ground cover they choose to include. So it would just be as simple as, showing what they're going to plant on each of those properties.
And the big benefit is we save water.
Yeah.
Anybody else got any questions for Mike?
So is this on the sewer district or city?
Southeast Sewer District.
It'll be on the
Yep.
Southeast Sewer
Yep.
District.
Yep.
Okay.
Anyone else? Any questions for Mike?
Well, I was trying, can we go back to the map of the boundaries of the subdivision?
Sure. That work, or
Well,
you want an aerial, or you?
yeah, that's good. So Flomer Lane is where, on the very top?
Yeah, you can see it
Very top,
in that location
Okay.
there.
So-
So there's currently a shop building here. There's a gravel driveway that comes off, provides rear access. There's a house here that's not part of the project.
Okay, so I guess that's my question. If there has to be a dedication of 10 feet of Flomer Lane, how do you get that from the house that's already there and the other shop?
It wouldn't be from this property. It would just be on this property here. So there is 10 feet to dedicate in front of the shop there.
Okay,
They're
and
planning on removing that shop, I believe. So
Okay, so that's part that line is part of it would be part of this development, that's part that has to have the extra 10 feet.
Yeah, it would just be this
Yeah.
portion
Okay.
and this
All right,
portion right
yeah,
here.
'cause I was
It
wondering
wouldn't-
about the middle.
Yeah, that's adjacent property owner,
Yeah,
different
that's what I
property
was
owner.
wondering, if you were going to demand something of a person who wasn't even in this development. Yeah, okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, anyone else for Mike? Any questions? All right, thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
All right, we'll open the public hearing and hear from the applicant.
There it is, yeah, that's right.
Once again, it's Scott Becker with Hodgson Associates, 405 South Washington. I believe Mike covered all the areas of interest or concern, I guess. But if there's any engineering questions, I can answer that. The owner developers are here too, that they would gladly answer any of the other questions you might have.
Anyone have any questions for Scott?
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Scott. Okay, now we'll open it up for anybody.
Philip,
I think the applicant is still.
Oh, the applicant, I'm sorry.
Yeah, my name's Ron Struthers. I'm one of the participants of Providenza LLC. I guess I'd just like to kind of back up with a little history. How did we got here where we're at? We first initially came in and planned on developing 5 to 6 lots, if you'll remember. We got quite a bit of pushback, and it just came to the point where it really wasn't financially viable. So we decided, well, we would just stay in the county and short plat it. Well, the county informed us that we couldn't short plat it just like a straight because it was in the impact zone. So, and that's when it finally came out that the county informed us that they thought, and she kind of concurred that the city thought it needed to be a higher density use. So that's how we ended up here. So I think it was important to have a little history on how we ended up at this point. Thank you very much.
Okay. So now in favor, huh? Okay, does anybody want to speak in favor? Or in support? No? How about opposed to the project? Anybody want to speak?
I'll go first.
Yeah, please. Just state your name and address and give us like 3 minutes and
Okay.
talk away.
All right, my name is Roy Derrick, and I live at 1418 Roxbury, which is right on the corner that's going to become the entrance. And one of the things, when I went back through and looked at some of the earlier testimony from the earlier hearings, people were saying they moved to those areas because they wanted the lifestyle. They wanted the larger lots. They wanted to be able to see the countryside. And, that's why I moved there. And I expected to see some sort of development there, but I expected the development to be similarly shaped houses, something that's maybe a 2-story house with a sloped roof on it. And instead, we're getting these things where I'm going to have 2 of these houses 15 feet from my backyard that's going to be over 30 feet straight up. Literally, when I go out into my backyard, all I'm going to see is the back of these houses. I'm not going to have daylight. The sun isn't even going to shine into my yard until it's probably 10 o'clock in the morning in the middle of summer. It's just what they're building there. It's too large for the amount of space. And I'm going to have 2 of these houses across the back of my lot. I'm not going to have any view at all. Okay. Some of the things that we also brought up, again, the requesting that they go with the 15 feet instead of the 20 feet. I'm not even sure if that's going to make much of a difference because it's still going to be, all I'm going to see is the back of this house. If anything, I think that they need to rework it and look at 2 floors max, maybe go a little bit larger on the lots. So like right there across the 2 of us that are off of Roxbury, instead of 4 houses there, maybe 3 that are 2 floors tall. I'm also concerned about parking. They say that the street's going to allow parking on one side, but you look at the number of families that you're putting in there. It's all going to be driveway, very little space to park unless you're in front of a driveway. Where are these people going to end up parking? Going clear out in front of our houses. And even our houses right now, when they're building the other houses in the neighborhood, some of the times getting up and down the streets is next to impossible with the construction traffic. And that's what I have a feeling it's going to be like with all these people starting to try to park out on Wild Rose and Roxbury. Okay, so that's my thought. And like I said, the main thing is I just think that they're going too small of lots and too large of houses on them. Okay, thank you.
Okay. There we go.
Hi, I'm Karina McCauley. I live at 1412 Roxbury. And
What's your address again?
Karina, 1412 Roxbury. I'm the second house right there on the left side. And so I'm going to be in the same situation as Roy, just looking straight out. My property line is 20 feet. I got a little more space than him. 20 feet from my back door is my property line. And holy cow, we're not going to get daylight. I'm not going to want to go in the backyard. We're not going to be able to use our gardens. It's going to be only so my dog can go outside and relieve himself. The number of cars that, not just the parking, but I know there's been a concern about connecting Roxbury to Highway 8. And I had heard that from the developer because you're worried about, Ridgeview Road is just a little bit ways down. This is going to be putting a tremendous number of cars dumping onto Highway 8 at a dangerous curve. Have you guys ever been to this area? Do you know, if you want to pause, I don't know if, this is probably completely, if you need to come see it, you are welcome to come see it in my backyard. Anytime you can come by 1412 Roxbury and I will let you stand there and see what this is going to be. But it's going to put a tremendous amount of traffic through our neighborhood. It's single family homes. It's not moderate density. I mean, it needs to be something that resembles the rest of the neighborhood, everything that surrounds it, and not this little poof thing in the middle of our neighborhood. We're all pretty upset about it, just letting you know. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Did you read this one?
Hi, I'm Jeff Baker, 2974 Highway 8. And my house is straight south, right in the middle of those three lots there towards the bottom. So looks like you guys are addressing the drainage issue that we have, which greatly appreciate. That's awesome. I'm curious, for starters, what that little rectangular thing is in the bottom right-hand corner. That's because it's just right behind my house.
It'd be a stormwater detention pond.
Gotcha. Okay. And that's all meant to make sure that there's no flooding coming down the hill. That's wonderful. I appreciate that. I do have a similar concern to the other folks here, just in terms of the small size of the lots and particularly the large houses. The 3 stories is I'm downhill from that, so it's definitely going to be like somewhat looming over my house, which is I know I don't get the final say in this, and I only get to give my 2 cents, which may not be worth very much. But in terms of my personal preference, that's not something I would like to see. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Okay, anyone else have anything that's opposed? Anyone have any general?
Oh, got somebody.
One more.
Oh, okay, come on. Sorry, I didn't see ya.
My name is Jennifer Snodgrass, and I live at 3130 Flomer Lane with my husband, Mark. So I was wondering, Mike, if you could please speak to the third recommendation where you mentioned the 10-foot property that would be basically dedicated for a future potential road, I think it was. Could you please talk more about that?
Yeah, it would just be 10 feet of dedication on this segment of the property and this segment as well. And so, we look to the future anytime a property is developed and there's not adequate roadway in order to maybe improve that roadway in the future. There's usually a dedication required as part of that development. So say in 50 years, there's a project and maybe more of these properties are annexed into the city, and there's a project to improve Flomer from a current gravel driveway to a more of a paved street. That just allows for additional space in order to put sidewalks and things like that in that area. So that's really the reason for that.
Oh, okay. Are there any current plans in the works for that right now?
No.
Okay. All right. So basically you're saying that people couldn't build on that 10-foot area?
Yeah, it just provides more room for the future roadway, but there's no plans to build anything right now. Or we're not recommending that the applicant be required to construct any sidewalks or do any paving on Flomer currently.
What about the property that belongs to, I forget his last name. His first name is Chris. He owns the property right between the proposed, thank you, yes. Would he be required to dedicate 10 feet of his property as well?
He's not, because his property is not part of this proposal.
So then, so we live directly across from Chris. That's where our house is located. So I'm just curious how having 10 feet on either side of Mr. Nash's property, how that would look like a street in the future.
That's typically the way, you see sidewalks in areas that, it's maybe one person's frontage has a sidewalk and then it goes for a block, there's no sidewalk, and that's how we end up getting the improvements in the future, is kind of like a piecemeal improvements here or there. And at the end, maybe you end up with a total sidewalk at some point in the future.
Gotcha. Okay. I think, am I out of time?
No, you're okay.
Oh, okay. Traffic has been an ongoing concern for us in Flomer. We've lived there since 2014, is that right? Especially with all the construction going on. Our Flomer Lane is really a gravel driveway. And boy, we've got so much traffic up and down there, and it's a dead end. We have lots of small children that live in our neighborhood. So safety has been an ongoing concern with the increase in construction traffic, because a lot of people think that Flomer connects to Wild Rose Court. People come up Flomer all the time, and then they have to turn around. Anyway.
Drove right by your house today.
Really?
Yes, I did, right at the end.
Oh. It'd be great to have a dead end sign so people knew that Flomer was a dead end, because I think they assume it's a through street and it's not.
In the county, you have to, I guess, have the county commissioners to.
Okay, I'll ask them about that. But I think that was the only questions I had. Thank you for explaining that.
Thank you, Jennifer.
So I guess they'd have to get together. Excuse me. My name's Ann Nielsen. I live at 1506 Roxbury, which is just south of where the map is. I don't have a whole lot to add except for to just reiterate my concerns with 3-story buildings, number one. Number two, just such close proximity between each other and my neighbors. And then just the amount of traffic and where all these cars are going to park, because it looked like from the rendering, and maybe I'm wrong, but it looked like it was just single driveways. Maybe it was double. I don't know, but you got a single driveway with minimum two cars. You're going to have at least one car parking on the street at every single house. And my concern is they're going to flow out onto Wild Rose. And plus just the additional just driving traffic. But I would hope that it would get reconsidered to a smaller, or to a, what the initial zoning, whatever it was, the single family R1. I'm sorry, I don't know the right term, but I just hope you guys would reconsider, because I think this is the wrong proposal for this area. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann.
My name is Ken Bertapelli, and I'm in the process of building a house that's not in the area shown on that spot, but it's in the upper left of that drawing. The address is 1315 Ridgeview. And I came to this meeting unaware of the whole issue until I received this notice in the mail. So I don't pretend to be very deeply informed yet. But I want to just add my voice to the voices that have been spoken, that I think the look of this neighborhood is going to be very, very odd, to say the least, in comparison to what's already built in Ridgeview Estates to the left of that drawing. It's going to look like a mini high-rise district in comparison, and very unattractive, in my opinion.
Thank you. Ken? Is there anyone else that wants to speak, propose, or in general comments? No one? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and
Mr.
open it
Chair.
up.
You would have an applicant
Oh,
rebuttal. if they
applicant, would you like to rebut? Sorry. Gosh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just the only thing I really want to rebut is the building heights are within code. Many of the building heights of the structures in the Ridgeview subdivision are probably the same height as these buildings. So even though they're a little bit narrower, they look taller, but the building height is not something that's outside of what the code allows.
So that isn't part of the PUD, the extra height is just.
I don't believe so, no. It's
Building height's 35 feet in R1 and R2 and R3 zones. So, yeah, the existing Ridgeview subdivision would have a building height maximum of 35. So they're proposing, it's about 30. It's slightly under because we take the average at the front of the structure. And so the daylight portion, once you average that, I think it's around 28 feet in height.
Okay.
So that would have been my question. By daylighting, you are in effect bringing the height down a little bit. So it's not the full 3 stories. It's more like 2.5 or 2.
It's 30 feet on one side and then the other side's 28 feet. So it's about 29 feet in height.
That's what you gain with daylighting. Just a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure this might be, I'm not sure who the
Oh, that's
question is. With the 35-foot height, because it's a PUD, the type of, the way the buildings look is established. But if someone had an empty lot in Ridgeview Estates, they could build this same exact design of house on that lot. Is that not true?
It's true, but I believe if you buy a larger lot, you're going to put a
No,
different style
But I'm
house.
just
Yes.
saying by right, they could.
Yes.
I could just decide, yeah, because,
So you could have the same height roof.
no,
but
Matt, you
be
could have,
twice as wide,
you could
too.
even have the same
So-
style. If you wanted, if you bought a lot
Yeah.
in Ridgeview,
Mhm.
you would be able, by right, to build whatever design you want, which is part of like what Fort Russell is. You've got Victorians next to little carriage houses next to a flat 1950 something. Yeah, okay, just ask.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, now we'll close the discussion and open it up for discussions here, questions. You guys got anything?
Something that Mike, I'm probably grasping at straws here, but we've got the height restrictions, but is there anything in the code that speaks to light blockage or interference with? I didn't think there was, but I just wanted to.
No, there's not, no.
Okay, you guys got anything else that you want to discuss or questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Victoria.
So nationwide and in Moscow, everywhere, we're looking for more housing. We're looking for affordability. And so we are all going to see more developments of this type in order for people to have a place to live and to be able to live there. So it may be new to some of us, but as we get further out or we have some infill, this is the kind of property that's going to wind up being developed.
Yeah,
Out
we've
of
been talking about
necessity.
this for years to
Out
get
of
affordable
necessity.
housing and filling in and
The density with the density helps limit that to not sprawling all over the place and being in certain areas where it makes sense to put them. So, and then you have with all the bonuses, those are all issues to try and mitigate the outcome of that for everybody. So we've reduced the water usage, we've reduced the use of infrastructure and maintenance and all that kind of thing. So there is a logic behind it besides building 2.5-story houses. And so people aren't always aware of that. So we kind of like to mention that so that you don't feel like people are just throwing up big houses, this style of house and this tall for no good reason. There is a reason behind it. And it serves the public. And developers have rights. I mean, they have rights to develop their property. So you can only put so many considerations on what you can tell somebody they can do. I can't recognize you.
Dennis?
go ahead, sorry.
And this is kind of directed, Mike, to you. Is there anything in the PUD that would preclude the adjacent property owners from purchasing those two lots and then not building on them?
You know, you can do
I mean, would that somehow disturb the PUD or?
Yeah, no, there's nothing in the PUD that would go against, but yeah, certainly it'd be up to the property owner of the PUD in order, if they're planning on selling those or developing them themselves, I'm not exactly sure.
Okay, thank you.
So what Rob is saying, and it doesn't happen very often because you have to be able to afford to do it, but technically a person could buy the lot next to them and not develop it or put trees on it or whatever they want. And then it doesn't get a house because you own the property. But not very many people can afford to buy the property next door just to keep a backyard, but that's what he's referring to. And it does happen. And it just happened in one that came
Recently,
before.
yeah, some neighbors got
Or some
together and
neighbors
bought some
did that,
lots.
so they could preserve their view and keep the backyard clear. Got to have the money to do it, but you can,
Yeah.
that's what he's mentioning.
Go ahead, Nils.
It is, it's exciting to see people striving to get this affordable, smaller things. We're at the conundrum, of course, is that most people who buy lots outside the city line, I won't try to predict what was in their head, but typically it's a little cheaper and you can build what you want. The city isn't suggesting what you can do. So here we are, once again, up against the city that must grow into the county who is not entirely
Thrilled.
certain of how that growth should be. And I will admit that the folks that have, I've been driving around the area in the last several months, actually, just paying a little attention to this group. And on Flomer and what have you. And so it's this kind of distinctly very livable, but ruralish kind of life. And now the city is right here. And it's sort of painful to have this, the issue come up, because here we are with a difficult decision. And I feel for the people who live right, none of these houses will look quite like the area in the sewer district, basically. That sewer district's been there a few years. I think maybe 40 years,
Oh, yeah, at least.
50. So it's gosh, it's troubling. On the other hand, I feel like we have to take a semi-modern stand. And so as I'm going to be in favor of the project, even though it pains me in some ways to do it. I guess that's my little speech.
Well, it does. It pains all of us every time we go through this. I mean, I went through
Yeah.
it personally in my house. I've said it before. I've got a neighbor now, a couple of them, that intruded on my hot tub visit. So, I mean, it is what it is. It happens, unfortunately. So, yeah.
I would also say that the incentives aren't there just so you can put more houses in. They're there to address affordability. They're there to address sustainability of the property. I mean, water usage, minimizing infrastructure, which is your streets and your sidewalks, which means the city has to plow them and rebuild the streets and all that infrastructure that's involved. It's there. It's a trade-off, and you only get a little bit. You don't get a lot, but you get a little bit from the incentives to get a better quality product that, in terms of providing affordability and providing water savings and better land use. So it's not there just to put more property in. If you're going to put more property in, you better be better be putting something back that helps. And that's what an incentive is.
I just have one little
go ahead.
codicil to my comment. And I didn't bring pictures here tonight, but those of you who live out in that area, if you will look carefully at the development that's going on just to the west, there's at least 2, if not 3 houses there that are very modern, they're going to fit in with these new houses, actually. It's hard to bring that forward, but it may be that it isn't the exact next house to this development. But as we've been watching what's going on there on the ridge, we can see this kind of stuff happening. So you could almost predict what could happen. You can almost see it right there in this development. I don't know what that's ridge view, I guess, happening right there. And so as we watch, as we drive by those, I think a lot of us say, wow, it's an amazing the variety of things that are going on in this piece of land. There's some of this and some of this. And I don't know if that probably doesn't help the people right next door.
No.
But it,
Well, and I've got a 35-foot building blocking, where I've lived for 40 years, blocking my view of Paradise Ridge, and I'd have to buy the whole block in order to get my view
I don't
back.
like to talk about the fact that I have 4-story apartments in my backyard, but
It is painful. It
do,
is
exactly.
painful, especially when you buy out in the country.
okay. Anyway, I guess I'm
Yes.
done.
Okay, has anyone else got anything? Yeah. Come on up. We were done, but we'll let you talk. Yeah, you got to come up there real quick.
These meetings are recorded, and if you speak out there, the recordings can't pick you up. That's why.
I was just curious what the,
What's your name and address?
oh, Ann Nielsen, 1506 Roxbury. I'm just wondering what is considered, or what the housing prices are going for, the ones that are proposed. Like, what is affordable housing for that area?
There's a complex
Good
question.
question. I don't know.
you pay for Roxbury 2 years ago? 1 year ago.
1 year ago, I paid $500,000 for a very tiny house on a very tiny land. So I'm like, I just don't understand how it could be affordable to anyone.
I had my house built and I'm, all the building costs and stuff, I'm approaching 600.
So I'm just curious as to what they consider affordable, because there's nothing affordable. I mean,
Part of the cost is when you develop a piece of a house on a piece of property, you also have to develop the infrastructure, the street. You have to build the street and the
Right.
sidewalks and all the other things that go in the sewer lines and everything else. So if you have smaller lots and you have more houses, well, you have that particular lot is smaller, so it has to contribute less
Right.
toward that street. That's a big piece of bringing the cost down.
Mhm.
There are other ways. I mean, you can do it. There are lots of other ways to do, or other
And-
ways.
General, I'm not opposed to housing back there. I just think it's too dense for that area. So I won't go over it again, but I'm just curious about what was affordable.
We just had a meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission and the City Council together, and they were mainly at the point talking about water. But they were looking at the average number of increases of housing over the last, Mike, you could speak to this, over so many years, and then the population going up like this, and we're actually at a deficit of housing. So is that the short version, Mike?
That's accurate.
So whether it's less expensive or not, it's still a shortage of housing we have.
And I think these are smaller houses, smaller lots, so that, I mean, that brings the cost down, doesn't it? I mean, I would think.
Again, I don't consider them smaller houses, because they're gonna be about 1,700 square feet, that's the size of my house. So I don't consider them smaller.
It's the footprint, I believe.
Well, the only thing we can say is that
Footprint.
a 1,700 or a 1,500 square foot house is certainly less expensive than a 3,000 square foot house. And we're not in charge of the world. You have to talk to Donald Trump about that. You know, we don't have any.
Well, a small.
Well, the smaller footprint is,
You have a smaller footprint.
is what you're, yeah.
It's a footprint. It's not square footage, how many
Well,
stories.
and that too. I mean, that's a smaller house, I would think, from what I see. I mean, that's
Yeah.
not a small house, but that's one of the smaller houses, I would think. And I think that's what they're trying to do. That's why they're narrow. That's why they're going up. They're not exceeding the height of it. I know it's horrible. I feel bad, but
And
you have to grow in, or you have to grow out, or you have to grow up. And that's the only way we can grow.
in a sense, the fact that these are detached dwellings makes it more desirable than if they were a row houses and you were stuck in the middle and didn't have,
Yeah.
two walls. You only had light on one side. So I think this is a compromise
I agree.
If you had row
between
houses,
apartments, between a 3-story apartment building with 8 units or 5 units per floor, or this.
They're like whether on Bristol or whatever that is, that are so close together. And
Anywhere else in Mossville that I see a more dense apartment complex, there's usually part of a buffer space. It's across the street. You've got the parking lot between the single family houses. And, that's my biggest thing.
you got to come up here and talk, or none of this is going to get on record. State your name
Okay,
again.
Roy Derrick, 1418 Roxbury. My whole thing is it's not the number of houses or anything. It's the size, how tall they are, and it's just completely blocking us in. Like I said, they're going to be 15 feet 30 feet up, 15 feet from my property line, 30 feet up. When I look out my backyard, that's all I'm going to see is the back of the houses. Any place else in town where they've got apartments or something else that's a higher density housing, there's usually some sort of a buffer. It's across the street. It's, there's the parking lot in between the houses and the higher density buildings. They're not right almost on the property line. And like I said, when I go out in my backyard and I stand there, I'm going to have to look almost straight up just to see any sky. If I look straight out, all I'm going to see is the back of these houses. Peripheral vision is going to be taken up. I won't see any sky, anything outside of my peripheral vision unless I look straight up. It's the equivalent of, the Regency apartments over here on Main Street by Pizza Hut. When you walk past those, if you're standing on Main Street looking back at the apartment building, that's all you see is that building. And that's what our backyards are going to become. And that's where I said earlier, it would make a difference if, say, there were 2 floors and on the back side, it has sloped roof instead of just straight up wall, because the sloped roof would allow you to see more. It would allow more light to come in. It would allow you to see the sky at least. And that's the whole thing in my point is it's just that straight up around 30 feet wall that's right there, 15 feet away from your property line. Okay. Thank you.
Well, I definitely sympathize with you, but that's why we have the height requirements and all this in place is for just like this, things like this. Anyone else got anything else to add?
I guess the last thing I would say, and we talked about this with council the other night, the next step, what we don't have in this town and probably will never have, is design review. And a design review looks at the exact design of a thing and says, hey, it isn't compatible. But in the state of Idaho, it's not liable to happen. And we've talked about design review both historically and otherwise here in Moscow for the last 30 years that I've been on planning and zoning, and we haven't been encouraged to move toward a design review, so it doesn't give us the tool that that some states and some cities have. It might seem like a lame excuse.
Well, we're bound by state law, and this state, it favors everybody having as much independence as possible. So they don't like a lot of restrictions. And so that's basically what he's saying. Another layer of design in here, it's just not allowed. And so we can't do it. Move to another state. Don't want to do that either. So.
Okay, has anyone got anything else for this
Well, we
proposal?
were being asked, oh, I'm sorry.
Dave Dale, 103 North Blaine. And I guess I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for coming out, because it doesn't hurt my feelings. I think what they have behind Mike, they're enhancing a sense of community. I've grown up with most of the people on that board and most of the people sitting over there. I played basketball at Joe Juicen's. I've eaten your pizzas for 30, 40 years. I grew up with you. I think that we just want to make sure, that's why Ron came up earlier to talk about a sense of history here. As somebody in the trenches in real estate, I've been in probably 70 to 80% of the houses in Moscow over the last 30 years, whether that's as a realtor or just as a friend. And this is, I think we've gotten some really polite feedback, and I know it's a different design, and my heart goes out to the people that moved there, and I like natural light, so I get it. But we've had a lot of people say that they don't have any place to go, where they don't have a shared wall. And so the idea is affordable housing here. It is without going into that Third Street development where they're sharing a wall or a row of common looking apartments. We were trying to do something fun that gets a starter home. And I mean, I've heard from people directly here tonight, and I just don't want anybody feeling like we're doing this to spite anybody's backyard or grow something that looks terrible or to hog your natural light. That's not our intent. I just want to make sure they know that. Yes, sir.
If there is a potential with your design skills, the people that to look at the houses that are these 3 or 4 houses here on this side, a potential would be to redesign them in such a way that.
Yeah, now they're going to be 35 feet. No, I'm kidding. No, I think I hear what you're saying. And yes, I'm of the mindset that I don't have to win and he has to lose. I'm of the mindset that we can both win. So if there's something we can do that is going to make, especially, it seems like most of the people have been focused on the west side of our design and specifically those 4 houses. We took into account, I mean, even the trees in the parkland dedication area. If we didn't have to take any of the natural trees, I like trees. When I grew up with the Snodgrass as a kid, they liked the quail on the north side of the shop. We're not making any plans to rip down the bushes that the quail live in. So again, I don't think that this is something that I don't want to make an eyesore or a traffic issue. I think if we're being fair, I actually talked to Ron about buying the Bloom development when it was for sale from Garrett Thompson. And even that had some of the same issues and worries. And it's something that you touched on with the ebb and flow of things. We've got to figure out a way to either grow up, grow out. You don't want this kind of thing just thrown out on Lenville Road. So it's an infill lot. It seemed like this hopefully will work for the best for everybody, but maybe we can come up with something on part of this that helps, or who knows? I mean, we could sell those lots and they could plant only trees in them. There's no zoning like owning. You said that earlier, or we're touching on it. So we're open on this. We don't harbor any ill will towards any of the neighbors, and we appreciate their feedback on this. We'll be taking it all into consideration.
Just, yeah, you're in preliminary design, so
Yeah.
you can take all this into consideration.
Yeah.
So the setbacks, what are the setbacks? Could that help any by tweaking those or to get it further away or any way to do that or?
Well, there's only, I mean, the typical setback's 20 feet. They're requesting 15. It's 5 feet. I mean, presumably, if you looked at their original design, there was a cul-de-sac that went up here. Even if you had lots that were the same size as this, you could presumably put a monolithic structure house right there that would have the same effect on the view shed. It's up to 35 feet in height for the building limitation. So probably the 2 smaller structures is going to be better than one large, 4,000, 5,000 square foot house on a huge lot right there. So, I mean,
No,
it's just
like
what the
this.
current.
I like the small condensity of it, but I just, was going through the view and the sunlight and see if there's anything in the setback we could do. If not, it is what it is.
So we're being asked to approve the preliminary plat, not the design of the houses, right?
It's part of a PUD, so it's all.
For the
Yeah, it's a-
PUD, it's all, the design of the house? I thought it was the lot size too. Is it all of it? Okay.
So you guys got anything else you want to discuss or questions?
I will
Yeah.
say, it sounds like you have a developer who is willing to work with you as much as he can. He has to be able to pencil it out, everybody has to be able to do that. But you don't always get developers who are willing to do that, so. Talk to him.
So we probably have to take these each individual as well, right, Mike?
Correct.
So I just need to entertain some motions here to get this thing rolling. If you guys don't have any more questions or comments I know we all feel bad and
I move that we accept the comprehensive plan use designation.
One second.
okay, Victoria?
Aye.
Nils?
Aye.
Aye. Richie?
Aye.
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 Okay, the number 2, recommend approval of the proposed rezone with no conditions. Number 2,
So moved.
it's So moved. Scott?
Second. Aye.
Sue?
Aye.
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
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 Nels?
Aye.
And number 3, recommend approval.
Did we have a second?
Yeah.
I'm looking for who did the second?
did the second.
Scott did the second? Okay.
Okay, we go on number 3. Recommend approval of the proposed plan unit development with conditions.
Are there?
And I just had the one condition, Mr. Chair. I previously had that underneath the subdivision plat, but it's more appropriate underneath the PUD. It's regarding the landscaping. So it would just be the condition that you see on the screen there.
Yeah.
Okay, the 5% density bonus for landscaping.
Yep, for
Expand the
landscaping.
Landscape plan to include landscaping on individual lots and the entrance.
Was that a motion?
Yeah, I move you made the motion with one condition, so
I
I'll
didn't
second
make the
your
motion.
motion.
Go right ahead. I'll second it. Or I'll motion.
I'm not making motions. I'm just reading them. So we got a motion and we got a second.
Yeah.
I'll start with Victoria.
Aye.
Nels?
Aye.
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 Okay. Number 4, recommend approval of the proposed preliminary plat with no conditions or recommended approval with the preliminary plat with conditions.
You
So this one's with conditions as well, right?
This is 3 conditions,
Yeah, all those.
Five total.
Conditions.
5 total, yeah.
So we need a motion for this if you guys so inclined.
I'll move to approve with conditions.
With 5, the 5, right?
The 5, yeah.
Because we moved number 6 over.
Second.
Second, okay. Scott?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And in accordance with the commission's decision on the comprehensive plan land use designation rezone plan unit development for a preliminary plat, direct staff to prepare a relevant criteria and standards document.
So moved.
Second.
Scott?
Aye.
Sue?
Aye.
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 Okay, that does that. Reports, Transportation Commission report. Joel is not here. Mike, do you have anything on that or?
I want
I
to
don't.
thank everybody for coming.
Yeah, we want to thank everybody for coming. Sorry, I'm just moving through this now. Yeah, thank you, everybody, for coming. We appreciate your comments. Thanks for taking the time out. Okay, any announcements, Mike?
None from staff, except for, I think the next meeting, I'm going to be out of town, so we're planning on canceling that meeting. If that's all
April
right with the
10th or-
commission.
That's the April 10th meeting, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, it's a little bit.
Okay.
So the next meeting would be the
Cancel that.
second in April.
We'll adjourn the meeting. We need a vote on that? Move to adjourn?
Thank you.
Okay, move to adjourn, second.
Just stay.
We don't have to vote on adjourn?
No.
Get me out.